Welcome, everyone, to the 12 Talk podcast. My name's Josh. As you can see, it's just me at the moment. Unfortunately, Mitch has had to hit the hay because we've got a very special guest on today. I will introduce him after we roll. You'll know him from the Seahawks pod. It's one of my favorite podcasts for Seahawks. I've listened to it for a long time, and I'm really excited to finally get to talk to the guy. So I'm going to hit the hit the theme music. We're going to get straight into it. We're going to be talking last year, how we feel it went, Pete Carroll's firing, the Mike Mack hiring, the off season with the free agency, the draft, and how we think the Seahawks look today and moving forward. And we've got a little quiz at the end, just to sort of pay a little bit of a homage to John Schneider and Mike Mack's current dynamic. So stay tuned. We're going to get into it straight after this. There we go. I'd like everyone to welcome in our very special guest, Clinton Bonner from the Seahawkers podcast. Clinton, firstly, thank you so much for coming on, dude. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. How are you?
Awesome, Josh. Hey, I could sit here all day and watch that intro. That intro is dope. That's a great job. I've seen it before, but being like in the cockpit here, I'm like, oh, this is really well done. So kudos on that to you and Mitch. Bummer that we don't have Mitch on this one. I get it though. I live in Connecticut, so I'm in New England and on the East Coast. And sometimes it's afternoon my time, late afternoon. Sometimes you got to get to bed. So we miss Mitch, but we will carry on, Josh.
That's it. I'm fortunate the fact that I'm on garden leave from work at the moment, so I don't have to wake up for work just to take a 4-year-old to preschool. So that's basically it for me. But yeah, we'll speak to you guys again. We'll get Mitch on because I know he was really pumped for this, but he has work tomorrow. So, I mean, without further ado, obviously, everyone who is watching or listening will probably know your face or voice from the Seahawkers podcast. Now, before we go any further, just obviously tell us about the Seahawkers podcast, where we can find you, what you might have coming up, and then we'll rehash it at the end as well. But it's one of those that I have bookmarked on my Spotify and my YouTube to make sure I stay up to date as well. So
I appreciate that for sure. So, I mean, I think the best place centrally is YouTube at this point, right? So youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast. That's going to be where everything ends up anyway, library wise. And then, wherever the heck you get audio. So just Seahawkers podcast. And then if you're out on X or Twitter at Seahawkers pod is where you'll find Brandon Schultz, who him and Adam had started the Seahawkers podcast now. Sheesh, I don't know, 12, some odd 13 years ago now, a long time ago now, 11 years ago or so. And then I kind of joined the squad 5 or 6 years ago when I was coming up with some content ideas, and they're like, yeah, let's rock and roll. Those dudes are great. And now we have others too. We have Phil that comes in and does the preview show. Yeah. What if the preview show with us? And we got Wilson, who's the kid from Princeton. He's a kid, 20-something-year-old who goes to Princeton. And we do the gambling show with him. So we just put out a large, wide variety of Seahawks content throughout the week, throughout the season, throughout the preseason, postseason, offseason. And heck, man, I'm a kid. I was born in New York. I love the Seahawks. And now I get to do Seahawks podcasts with buddies from around the globe. So this is cool.
It's perfect, isn't it? I mean, obviously, we get a lot of people asking why we're Seahawks fans in the UK and why we're so big into it. And I think it's one of those where I've got friends who support different NFL teams and different sports teams from around the world. And it's not sort of where you're from, it's what you associate with the best. And I gravitated towards the Seahawks through Sean Alexander, through sort of Matt Hasselbeck and Lofa Tatupu, sort of that era, and moved sort of with the team. And as my love grew, so did my intentions of doing more with it. So I started doing podcasts and listening to other podcasters like yourself and sort of, the guys and plenty of other podcasts around the world. With this podcast, like we're a podcast where we try to be sort of by 12s, 412s, and with 12s. So we try and get 12s all over the world. We've currently had people from Germany, a gentleman named Johan, or Jonas Meister, even, who is part of the German Seahawkers. Fantastic. Nice. We've had guys from the UK. We've got more lined up. We've got yourself as well. So we're going to keep trying to build that. And it's just awesome to speak to people even from Connecticut.
Yeah, sure.
So for you, after we don't want to talk too much about it, but the Super Bowl loss, I can imagine that you had a lot of people talking to you about it.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, like, congratulations on having very good taste. Can't speak for your friends who are not Seahawks fans over there, but you chose wisely, so which is amazing. And yeah, so I went to school at University of Connecticut, UConn. So big Christian Haynes fan, by the way. I know we'll talk draft later, which is cool. I'm a New Yorker by birth. I went to school at UConn, stayed in Connecticut, and my brother, who's 5 years older than me, is a huge Patriots fan. And like, this is back in the day, we were both growing up in Long Island. He liked the Patriots. I like the Seahawks. So yeah, I won't talk about the play or how that game ended. I'll just say my brother was gracious and still is to the day, being like, he's like, yeah, that's because he watched his team go down in flames to the Giants, like with the perfect season on the line. So he knew what it was all about to lose the heartbreaking ones. However, I could always remember that just the year previous to that, Josh, it was 43-8, and we smoked the Broncos, and they will never, ever, 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 can never take that away from us.
It's one of my favorite sporting moments. As a semi-soccer fan, I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan, and we won the English Premiership in the 94-95 season. We don't talk about them nowadays, but a founding moment. And sort of rugby, I had Wasps and England winning the World Cup, and the Seahawks is like the most recent one winning the Super Bowl, and that will always live long in my memory, because for so long I've had so many people saying, "Oh, the Seahawks, why do you support them? And what's with all the love? Why have you got the tattoo and everything?"
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, totally worth it, right? It all, it's so worth it. And it's been a good franchise. I go back to, I know we're going to get into Pete, and I go back to, Paul Allen and Holmgren. Like, they changed, they turned it into a platform. They turned the whole thing into a culture of mostly success. And now we're going on 2+ decades of this being a good franchise. Some ups, some downs, really 3 coaches, 4 if you put more in there at this point. And just success since Holmgren's been here. And it's a platform where another coach can step in, make the changes he feels he has to make, and still have a level of professionalism in the building that I would gather is still whatever, top 5, top 10 easily across the league in terms of we do things the right way. And that matters over time,
I think it's indicative of people coming back. Like, you've got Jaron Reed, who's come back sort of last season and sort of staying on again this season, which is something we're going to address on a future pod as well, and possibilities. But I think everyone that's left, barring some others that have gone into podcasting and hosting other shows, have spoken really fondly about the Seahawks. I just think that sort of sums up the franchise itself. I mean, if we're talking sort of history, we'll start with sort of last season. What was your impression of last season? How do you think it went? Do you think it's something that we, obviously we know what happened at the end of it, but what was your assessment?
It was kind of icky, man. It was kind of icky, right? So, and I use that term because, well, why do I use that term? Something is icky to me when it could have been better, right? Like when things were left on the table. And I don't mean the Arizona Cardinal kicker missing the freaking field goal that I actually wish he made. At that point, I'm like, we were out already. I was arguing with people on my Discord. I'm like, I don't care if we lose this game. It doesn't matter to me if we lose this game, because I thought the die was probably cast for Coach Carroll at that point anyway as well. And it turns out it was. But it felt like we left a lot on the bone. And I think for me, it really started with Abe Lucas and that knee. And that unraveled a lot of things. And on the other side of the ball, I mean, Josh, we couldn't stop the run. I mean, look, you can't have a game like that versus the Pittsburgh Steelers where you are just manhandled up and down the court, if you will, and they control the game on you when you clearly have a more talented offense. And you have, I think, well, I'm going to say, better stars at that point, but I mean, they had Watt, but who was pretty contained that game actually. But overall, we got pushed around, Josh, and that feels horrible. So you get the change you get, and I understand it. I thought for a second there was going to be Clint's hurt. not even like scapegoat. It was like, well, not good enough, right? And we're going to
Oh,
make that change and then see what goes from there. And Carroll might get one more year because there was things happening between Schneider's contract, between ownership, and that they have to put the team up for sale at a certain point. I was like, oh, are they going to want to risk something brand new where they don't know what's going to happen with with the looming sale? Now, yes, it's a very, very popular franchise. However, if you go, 2-13 in a year, you might really ding how many billions you could sell a franchise for. So I thought they were going to be more risk off, and I was wrong. I was wrong. And that kind of leads us to now. But I don't know about you, Josh, but that's how it felt for me. We got pushed around the games that we couldn't have in positions that you just can't get pushed around the NFL. You can't get bullied up the gut, and we did. And that's to still win 9 games and kind of be right there. We're a field goal away from beating the Rams. We should have won that game, and we're in the playoffs. So we're still right there, man. But how did you feel?
I was disappointed. I thought the talent we had on the roster, the young talent, especially after the draft, I thought we should have done so much more.
Yeah.
I was optimistic about what the coaches could have brought, but then I don't like harking back to other people's opinions, but the general consensus of we always reverted back to Pete ball. If things went wrong, we didn't stick with a game plan and see it progress. It always just Pete went back to, this is what we do. I'm telling you this is how it is. And you can see it happen throughout a game. If things didn't start working out, it just reverted back to the exact same gameplay. It was the standing off everyone by 10 yards, giving them those underneath throws and the absolute lack of run D. Like you said, that Pittsburgh Steelers game, it made my heart hurt because one of my best friends, my best man at my wedding, is a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
And he just messaged me, WTF, after during the third quarter. And I was like, please don't talk to me for a long time. I can't deal with this. I just thought the writing was on the wall when you saw the amount of games that we should have won with the talent on that roster that we didn't. And that was down to bad coaching, just bad play. The scheme, I don't think, fit who we had there. I think the injuries, like you said, to Abe Lucas. I think defensively, I think when Nwosu went down, we didn't have an answer for
none. Right.
And I think I'm a massive Derek Hall homer. I think you should have used the opportunity to blood him properly and give him as much game time as possible. Because if that happens again, he's the ready-made replacement straight in there. Now, I think Mike might look at him and think, we'll get onto this, but he's a bit more flexible in what he can do.
Yeah, I do want to jump in because I think the one thing that I got most frustrated with too was I came in seasons ago really liking the prospects of Shane Waldron. I was like, oh yeah, like I could really get behind this. I think he's going to be that next mastermind coming out of the McVay tree and all this stuff. By the middle of last year, I was just done. I was off. Because my biggest thing with him, which I've talked to EJ Snyder about this from the bootleg team because he's a huge Bears fan. I'm like, look, the thing for me in general, and I got some other Bears fans just from Long Island where I grew up. They're like, well, what do you think of Waldron? I'm like, I don't think he understands how to put his foot on the gas, and if he has a hot hand, what it means. It's like if something's working, exploit the crap out of it. And for me, it was always like, got to get back to the sheet, got to get back to the plan we had. It's like, well, you don't, why not ditch the plan? If Kenneth Walker's getting, 6.3 yards per carry, give that dude 24 carries that game. Let him be the workhorse. And this whole almost baseball pitch count feel. Oh, we got to get this bounce.
Yeah.
Why? Let Walker just go off for 140 in this game and then figure it out next week if you want more Charbonnet. That was my biggest thing. It's like, man, you've got some super weapons and you underuse them. And then when someone gets hot, you don't throttle it. It's like if they can't cover DK, give DK 15 targets. But I just never saw that from Waldron. The understanding of, oh, that's what I saw within like, let's say a quarter and a half. Now we're just going to exploit the crap out of that. Bugged me to no end. So that was a change that I was kind of actually that one I was very, very happy to see him see him go when the kind of baby with the bathwater.
And yet surprised that he went to the Bears, which I find really odd. For me, it was the first scripted plays I thought were always on point.
Usually very good, right?
Exactly. But then as soon as he went off script, like he said, he didn't know how to use the players he had. So there was an absolute lack of sort of inward slants from DK, or trying to get Lockett free, or just using JSN for what he's good at, catching those really shallow balls, creating yak, and creating that separation. And then it was the insistence of, when we did run, which we went away from far too often, trying to get Ken Walker to run it up the gut all the time. Whereas you've got a running back like Charbonnet, who at UCLA was known for running up the gut, making the hard yards, but also being able to cut outside. Now there was no interchangeability there, and it really frustrated me. And I've banged on about it on the pod and on X for quite a while now. And I'm kind of hoping with this running back room we've got, with the new sort of offensive, sort of the grub offense, he'll be able to use them properly and actually be able to get them some more game time and some better sort of results. I mean, that all ended between Clint Hurt's defense not being able to cover anyone, allowing so much of the run, not capitalizing on the games and the offense that we have and the weapons we had. That all led to Pete's retirement, or Pete's firing, where he's now in a consultancy role. But I think everyone knows that he's not really going to be stepping foot in that building unless we're asking him to raise the 12 flag.
Right. I agree.
Which, like I said, we all saw coming. And then there was the talks in the off season as to who was going to be the new head coach. And I personally think we got the right man. I don't know what your feelings are with this.
So, yeah, I was very, very into the camp of, I would like a defensive minded coach. And then and there's reasons for that, because I'm a kind of a systems dude in general. Like when I approach my work life or my life and other ways, I am very much like, okay, well, what's our biggest problem? Okay, that's our biggest problem. Let's fix that. And if you look at some of the deeper stats on the offense, there was plenty of good, in spite of really what was like third down tragedy. Third down, when they knew we had to pass, we were a disaster because we couldn't block well enough and give Geno, basically, hey, go play hero ball. And he did pretty well playing hero ball, mind you. It was still way too predictable, and we couldn't block on third down. However, the bigger problem was we're like, 32nd or 30th in a ton of defensive categories. So I'm like, let's fix that. And there were some different approaches on the table, like Dan Quinn, which would be a bit of a retread, or MacDonald, which is this whole idea of multiplicity and creating the sense of pressure without blitzing, et cetera, and the confusion to the quarterback, which is probably the most important thing you could do right now. Is if you can't move him or literally get up the gut, like Strahan versus Brady type thing, if you can't do that, which is very hard to do consistently, at least, then confusing them is the next best thing you can do to get them out of their pattern where they think they need to go. So when it came down to it, Josh, like I looked at across the board and I was like, yeah, give me the guy that's not just doing some fresh things, but is clearly able to take role players and make them something really strong. In the same way Carroll could go pluck 5th and 6th and 7th round draftees and UDFAs, make them really good cornerbacks and safeties, right? So I look forward to MacDonald taking guys who are, I don't want to say fringy, but new Seahawky. And then we're like, oh man, do I love that guy? And why do we love him? Because he's performing inside a role and he's doing it really, really well. So yeah, a big fan of the hire. The offensive coach, offensive coordinator part was an interesting pairing as well, because that's a whole different bowl of wax, man. But sounds like you and I we're big on the MacDonald as the choice, and it broke very nicely for our Seahawks, I think.
Yeah, I think 100%. And it's a pity that Mitch isn't on the pod, because he's got a lot of views as to what Mike Mack can do with this defense, because he's already said he's going to call them defensive plays. Obviously, we've got Dirty, who we're huge fans of, being an Englishman. It's an amazing step up, and it shows sort of the way the game is transcending here in the UK. But I think what Mike Mack can do with this defense, and we've just put something on our Discord as well about potential starting defenses and sort of the sort of depth charts there and what he can do and how he can move these pieces around. It's really exciting. I'm hoping with Grubb, with a spread West Coast offense, with the weapons he's going to have, he will really be able to create something with it. When you've got, I look obviously beyond the first three wide receivers. If you've got wide receiver 4 being Jake Bobo, being a blocking wide receiver who's also got the ability to catch, I think that's going to open up so much as well, especially with the running game. He's going to now be looking at a fully healthy Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Kenny McIntosh, and potentially Halani as his RB4, who was very productive in college. It's exciting, but I always err on the side of caution that I've not seen what's happening yet or what they're going to do. I'm excited, but I'm not forever the pessimist. I'm forever the skeptic until I see it. So show me how it works, and I'll be all aboard. I'm excited, but it's a sense of trepidation for me.
Yeah, and it's a fun. It's going into the season that we're heading into now. This is going to be even the okay. I'll watch every preseason game because I want to see what gets unveiled. My guess is not that much will get unveiled. It'll be fairly vanilla while they're piecing things together. And of course, you peel your starters out as you should. But game 1, whenever the schedule does get announced and we see who it is, game 1, series 1, 2 series in the last 13, 14 years, it's going to be like, what are we going to see? This is going to be, and
that's from the exciting part, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. From the defensive side, you have a good understanding, right? Because we've seen what MacDonald has done in Michigan, and of course with Ravens last couple of years, we have a good understanding. So Brandon, Adam, myself, and we were on Seahawks Forever just yesterday with Dan Viennes, and we were talking about this. I know Dan's been on the show too, right? On your show,
I was literally about to say.
And Dan's great, right? So a big fan of Dan. And we were talking about all right, so we kind of know what we're going to get on defense because it's on tape, but we really don't know what's going to happen offensively because what Grubb was running at UW was very successful for the wider hash marks. And it's college. It's just, and you have a guy like Penix who can take the deep shots over and over and hit the outsides over and over. And he's got 3 great wide receivers. So why not already? And he's got Westover moving everywhere and lots of motion. And then you start to see that the draft picks and Charles Cross can really move and Christian Haynes can really move. And then they bring in Westover as a UDFA. And you've got dudes like Kenneth Walker. We're talking about if you get him in space, purposely get him in space, what can possibly happen, right? And I think Gino is exceptionally good at he will go through his progressions, go through them quickly, and then very, very most often make the right decision, whether that's read 1, nope, 2, 3, check it down, whatever it is. With all that, Josh, I still got to see very skeptically in a positive way, I think, like you're saying, what will that Grubb offense actually translate to in NFL terms? Because it can't just be what they did at UW, because I think we'll get sniffed out within a couple of weeks, the max, and then we're looking at a really long season. So how does it blend into NFL? So it's just it's NFL ready is the best way I put it. And I think that to me, that's the biggest question mark. It's going to be really exciting to see how the heck we do this a couple of quarters into the year, man.
Yeah, I think this is the thing following college as well. So I'm an Oregon Ducks fan. Don't judge me. But
no worries.
It's for me. It's obviously when they're in college. I find a much broader expanse because there are teams that are stacked with starters in college, but they go undrafted in the NFL. Whereas every NFL team is the creme de la creme of the college game that you've then got to play against every week. And this is where, for me as well, this is where I'm with Grubb. I'm hoping that the newness he'll bring with fresh ideas and what he's seen in college and what might not have been tried in the NFL will work. But until I see it work, I'm not going to pass judgment. We've seen what Mike Mack can do. We've seen how he can run a defense with so much disguise, with having 7 defenders on the line to show some sort of blitz, but then pushing them all back into coverage and who is going to be blitzing is if anyone. And it's exciting because we've seen that happen. We've seen what he did with Baltimore and how well it worked. And with the weapons he's got at Seattle, I'd hope that he'd be able to bring that forward, sort of, make it better, improve upon it, and make it our own. And he's said in multiple interviews now that he doesn't want this to be a carbon copy of Baltimore. We will be our own defense. Obviously, he's got his own principles that he wants to bring in, which we'll bring in when we come to talk to the UDFA or the free agents as well. And I want to see what he's going to do with this defensive unit. I mean, with that, I think we're both quite high on the Mike. Well, we are both high on the Mike MacDonald hire, which is fantastic to know we're both on the same wavelength, because I've had multiple conversations with people who are all about Ben Johnson. And as soon as he took himself off the board saying he was going to stay in Detroit, I was like, oh, well,
yeah,
never mind. Now we've got someone that can actually fix our defense. Yeah. And then obviously during free agency, we saw ourselves getting rid of such players as, Quandre went, Jamal went, and I think Jamal was the top of a lot of people's lists because of the injury history. We know what he could bring when he was fit, but I think after his last injury, he wasn't up to speed. He looked to shadow his former self. And then we brought in some players that I think were kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
And again, having spoken to quite a few Seahawks fans through our Discord, through X, there was a lot of arguments going around about them.
Well, so I think the most interesting area is, and we didn't do much in the draft around this either, is still going to be what we did at linebacker. And this is not because Bobby Wagner signed with the Commanders. Like, I thought Bobby Wagner was a mostly fine run stopping linebacker at this stage of his career, sideline to sideline. Just, it's not, the speed's not there anymore.
The juice wasn't there anymore, was it?
It's just is what it is. It's like, it's not. And people are like, oh, how could you say that about Bobby? It's like, well, that's because that's what happens to athletes. They lose certain abilities, and his sideline to sideline went away, and he was not able to cover it all. So he became a liability in the coverage game, and it got exposed over and over again. That's okay. It happens. Doesn't mean the guy's not getting a gold jacket. He's not in the Ring of Honor. All those things are still true, and he's a champion forever. The linebacker situation, I'm very interested in seeing, is this a little bit of MacDonald hubris? Does he think he can make it work with anybody? Does he think he has the right bodies, including, Tyrese Knight now, and then the free agents we brought in? Or does he need a Roquan Smith type to be the keystone of what he's trying to accomplish? And if so, that's tough, because there ain't so many Roquan Smiths out there. That's the tough part. If I had a wager on that, by the way, I would say he's going to be able to make, make what maybe average linebackers shine in this setting. And again, traits wise, they could do the things he wants. Hence, he takes Tyrese Knight in the fourth when others are like, well, I wanted Jeremiah Trotter Jr. It's like, okay, you might have wanted that. I'm more of like a basey, solid linebacker, but he sees something in Knight. We brought the dude in as like not just the defensive guru, but a linebacker specialist. I've got to tip my cap and be like, okay, well, it's year one, so I'm not going to complain too much about that pick. I'm going to trust it. I could poke at it, but I'm going to trust it. But I still have to be a healthy skeptic and say, will this work without, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen as your 1-2 sitting in the middle? And I don't know. I'm not sure, Josh. What do you think?
I think the Roquan, in my opinion, he is possibly the best inside linebacker in the league at the moment, hands down. I think the Patrick Queen conversation is very much what was Patrick Queen before Mike MacDonald got his hands on him?
I mean, he's on the verge of being a bust, right?
Exactly. He was drafted 1 pick after Jordan Brooks.
Yeah.
Or was it one pick before? I can't remember.
I think it was one. I think it was one after. I think.
Yeah, it's late in the UK. Yeah, he was 1 pick after Jordan Brooks. I think Jordan Brooks has had, apart from last season, has had a more consistent career to date. But then Patrick Queen put him next to Roquan in Mac's system, gone to the point where he's now signed a big money deal with the Steelers. He earned his bread, and he decided to move on to get as much as possible, which is completely understandable. I think the inside linebacker, the quandary on it is does Mike Mack see, like you said, traits? And he said he loves Tyrese Knight's eyes, his athleticism, but there are some things he needs to refine which means obviously he's not going to be getting significant starting reps to start with. Absolutely fine. And then we bring in someone like Dodson, who really started to shine for Buffalo. And I think the big thing with someone like Dodson, with Jerome Baker's a leader. He's known to come down. He can come downfield. He can hit a quarterback. They're very good students of the game as well, and the interchangeability and the flexibility of moving them around the field, I think, is what he's looking at. When you look at everyone that we've brought in from, even the defensive line, they're able to move them in different places. This is where this season we might see someone like Kobe Bryant getting more significant snaps, because even though he was drafted as a cornerback, they moved him to safety. I'm not sure if he's a traditional strong safety, but that tweener safety where you can move him, either put him in the nickel and put Spoon on the outside, or vice versa, and you don't know who's coming from where and what's happening. I think that's where the squad now lies, in that versatility in positions. And Mitch has been talking about this, and we're going to be talking about this when we do our roster review pod, where everyone there, whilst we've got majority Mikes, we've got some Wills, everyone's got that positional versatility where they can be moved around a field, and you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who's covering who's going to be doing what job. And that's what's exciting for me at the moment, especially when you look at the abundance of cornerbacks we've got. And we'll talk about that when we get onto the draft as well, shortly.
Yeah, right. It's a good room. It's a good room, and I'm with you. Like on the, it's mapping to what MacDonald wants to go do, and there's still a lot of risk there, in the sense that you have Dodson, you have Baker, they're on 1-year deals, and then you bring in Tyrese, and the thing that I've said before in the Seahawkers pod is, like, I also think that, to me, the way they're shaping up the linebacker room, for me, also indicates that I think they feel strongly about maybe some of their floor guys that we haven't mentioned yet. We got Drake Thomas, and is it Connell or O'Connell? I always get
I think it's O'Connell, and then you've got John Rattigan as well.
Rattigan to me is probably a special teamer for life, and just because athleticism is, the ceiling is what it is, and he's obviously a heady guy, smart guy. But the other two, I feel that you might have just a prototypical floor linebacker with those guys who can see the ball, do the right thing, make the right call, and have enough athleticism. Like when we peeled Drake Thomas out of the Raiders system, they were pissed. Like if you watch the videos and watch people's reactions, they're like, how did we not protect that guy? And I was fired up last year, because I'm like, oh boy, we could use him now. Now it didn't turn out that way. We ended up, kind of stashing him and all that. But I do think that they look at the whole room and they see, okay, we actually have two floor guys that no one's really paying attention to. So therefore, we actually can take a little more risk in this position than the average person thinks we can. And I think that's what we're seeing kind of play out.
I think as well, we've got to look at this, and I know there's a lot of hype going on at the moment in sort of Seahawks circles about what Mike Mack can do and everything. But as a sports coach myself, a year is never your proving ground. So it takes a year for you to instill the fundamentals for what you want in your team, who you want to get. You have these people that will come in and just be placeholders for a year, because they can kind of do what you need. Year 2 is where it all starts really coming around. So we'll start seeing, and then we'll get onto this when we talk about how we think this season might go at the end, but this is where you'll start seeing towards the end of the season, oh, so that's what they need. That's what they're trying to do. That's what people are now learning. They learn their assignments and what's being asked of them and the verbiage. And I think that's what he's looked at here with someone like Baker and Dotson and gone, you guys, 1-year contract, let's see what you can do. I think I can get you to play my system for this year. If you excel, cool, extension, brilliant. If not, then I've got players there, like you said, with the floor, who within a season, I can have them practice with the first team, learn my system, learn what I want. And then next season, I may have my middle linebackers there, because they've spent a whole year being coached in my system and they know exactly what they're doing then. And this is where I really want to sort of really put it out there to Seahawks fans that I'm not a pessimist. I'm trying to be a realist, but I'm not expecting a lot this season. I'm expecting to see some really good plays and some things that we've not seen before, but I'm not expecting us to go and win 13 games.
Mm. Yeah, the piece that I will say two things. Number one, I think you're right about every single thing you just said. And the thing that scares me is that it requires patience. And in the year 2024, there's not a lot of patience for lots of things. And especially in sports, it is people want it and they want it now. And it's not built that way sometimes. And even MacDonald, year one with the Ravens, before he can get a couple of key pieces in place, Roquan Smith, it wasn't all roses. It was starting to gel, and then it gelled really, really, very nicely, obviously. So I think I'm certainly with you, and I want to put the look. If we're into week 8 and this team's sitting at 3-5, don't panic. Don't get stressed. First of all, it's half the year. We could make it back in the second half of the year, like 2012, or you can turn it on, and just have a little grace and understanding that not everything's going to be great out of the gate, and a little more patience than you normally would go a long way, I think. And hey, I'm not going to tell people how to go fan. They can go fan how they want to go fan. I just think the proverbial mob that could descend, that can make enough noise that then makes people do things differently, whether that's management or whatever, or ownership. We see it all the time with look at Sam Howell's 2 years. Like, look what he was thrown to in 2 years. Just defunct, horrible organization, bottom 2, probably worst organization in the league, completely defunct, and bad head coach, change the OC, throw the ball 50 freaking times a game, do not give him protection, and then say, oh, well, this guy throws lots of interceptions. Okay. All right. That sounds, it's the antithesis of what I'd like to see our team do when it comes to patience to create a system that is successful for the long term.
Agreed. I mean, the Sam Howell conversation is a great one. I don't know how often you've listened to this pod or watched, but anyone that has, Mitch is our stats and figures guy. He loves a spreadsheet. He will pull these facts and figures out of nowhere. Something like Sam Howell, we were having just one of our general chats in between pods on the Discord or whatever, and he was pulling out the averages of, because of how many times he was asked to throw and how many interceptions he got and touchdowns. He was looking at the averages, and they were actually much better than some of these so-called elite or good quarterbacks when you broke down the averages based on how many times they've got to throw and their interception ratios and touchdown ratios. But unfortunately, the patience isn't there. Everything in sport now is win now. If you've not got a medal or a trophy, it's not successful. And that isn't sustainable. We see it in the UK and like the English Premiership, where someone brings in a manager and they last 2 seasons and they've not managed to instill their philosophy, to bring in their players or anything like that. But because the fans start crying for blood, baying for blood, they get sacked, and it's not right. This is where I'm really hoping that this might max 6-year contract. He'll be able to see it through, and by the time we get to year 2, year 3, we'll really start seeing it pay dividends. I just hope that we start to match the Rams and the 49ers rather than going like last season. I think that game against the Rams was so unexpected just due to the players that they didn't have. And I think part of that was the coaching of the game.
Yeah, but the first game of the year, right? So like it was, and then we've quickly realized, oh wow, the Rams knocked it out of the park with this draft class. And Stafford was, for my money, I thought he deserved actual MVP votes. That's how good he was playing at times of the year. And then the second game, we stifled them. We had them on the ropes, and we let them go, and we lose that game, at the kick that we should have made. Had no business losing that game, and we did. With that, to keep up with the Joneses, if you will, look, the whole division's gotten better, which is something. The Cardinals are not sitting still at all. They've gotten markedly better. The Niners, we'll see. Even if the Niners, here's the thing with the Niners, even if they take a quote unquote step back, fine, they're still a good football team. And I expect them to take a step back because I believe in Super Bowl hangovers. I really think that does a number on you. I think we could speak from experience with what that can do. And in general, too, you have Trent Williams aging. His father time slowly but surely, his PFF grades are starting to come down. The offensive line's not amazing outside of him. It's okay. It's not amazing. And to me, Purdy is the quintessential, if you heat him up, he will cough the ball up. He's a good NFL quarterback. Not even saying he's not good. His arm strength is mediocre. And if you get in his face, he makes mistakes. And I can expect more of that this year. And I don't know. And then the Rams are just, man, the Rams are good. They're just good. They draft so well. Look at last year's draft class. You go up and it's like, oh, there's 5 banging starters, like all pros. Yeah. Setting records. Like, what is going on? If Stafford stays healthy, they're a problem again. But now we have MacDonald, who's going to play this a heck of a lot differently, and very excited for that McVay-MacDonald, masterpieces. That's going to be fun.
I can't remember who I was listening to. I went to pick my wife up from the airport the other morning. She'd just come back from New Zealand for 2 weeks, so it was an early start. I had a couple of hours in the car, and I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about the fact that the Rams and the Seahawks basically they drafted to try and usurp each other. So the Rams went offense to try and get over the Seahawks. Seahawks went, well, we'll go defense and we'll stock up on all this as well, desperately trying to meet each other. And it's going to be such a good head-to-head. 2 really young coaches this year with really good rosters, just seeing exactly what they can do. I'm predicting sort of a 1-1 for them. I don't think it's going to be a whitewash. I think it's going to be we'll win one, they'll win one, and they'll be fantastic games to watch. I'm excited to see them. I mean, with that, we've talked about the free agency. Let's talk about the draft class.
Sure.
Let's start with our first pick 16, Byron Murphy. What were your thoughts on that?
So a couple things. Number one, I was on the table for Troy Fautanu. Like, he was the guy I wanted. And again, I said it earlier, I'm like, what at that point? Okay, what's our biggest problem? And I'm like, it's offensive line, so like we and whatever, right tackle, kick him into guard. In my brain, he was always as long as Abe is healthy, you kick him into guard. And you solve that. And then you have overnight, you have a really, I think, borderline, very, very good B to B plus line that could be dominant and be really young, right? Be cheap and dominant, which is a good recipe for like 90s Cowboys and like a 05 Seahawks. So I wanted Fautanu. When we had the opportunity and we passed on him, I was in the moment like, oh man, I think we goofed, being honest about it, because I was just so fixated on fixing that thing. With all that, Murphy is, I very much appreciate what he can be, what his size, stature, strength can be. I was also, I was on the Newton train. Of the 2 before the draft, and just again being honest, I was like, I think Newton might be more productive. I mean, certainly numbers wise, he was more productive, more snaps and more productivity, and less snaps from Murphy. But then the draft pick comes in, and then you hear why they want him, and you see the guy, and you're like, that's our guy, right? And I think he could be an absolute game wrecker of a defensive tackle in a premier position. Run stopping, getting to the quarterback, being disruptive, taking on 2 dudes, keeping linebackers clean. Like, he could do a lot of things that, all of a sudden Nwosu's got 12 sacks. Well, I wonder why, right? So there's a lot there. So when it shook, Josh, I was like, okay, cool. A day later, I'm like, I love him. It's great. Let's rock and roll. But I was on the Fautanu train to fix the biggest problem. However, we're going to talk about something that might have fixed that in the third round anyway. But how about you? Who was your number one guy? Was he your biggest draft crush?
No, I was aboard the Latu train. It was gotcha. Latu, Fautanu, or trade back to the latter part of the first, pick up a second, and get one of those premium linebackers. But having done more research on Mitch as well as our draft expert, I'm basically saying that Mitch does all the stats and all the other bits. I'm just the mouthpiece. That's all I am. But Mitch did a lot of draft research on this. And as soon as the Murphy pick came in, we were live on our Discord. And And he was like, fantastic pick. And he started rattling off so much, and sort of his position versatility where he sees
Yeah.
himself with 3 tech, but with playing at the
0,
nose.
1, 3. Like, yeah. I mean, he played more nose than Devondre Sweat.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, oh, dude, that's something. If you got a 360 pounder and they're like, no, let the 305 guy do it. Okay. Especially like it's at Texas too. It's not like it's nowhere, right? So just playing powerhouses. So
Yeah.
really, and again, back to that word, versatility. And of course, he's going to be a DT, but still, he played linebacker. He ran the ball in high school. Like he's got a really good sense of how to play football in a lot of positions. And then he's a powerhouse, 6'1". He's going to have awesome leverage, going to be disruptive. And so you got to figure Mike MacDonald's just sitting there being like licking his chops, right? Being like, come on, what else could I ask for?
I think this was the conversation. I think it was where they were just watching this board fall, and as soon as Latu went, they probably went, okay. I mean, I'm kind of happy we didn't take another edge, because I really see our
Right.
edge group being able to develop and be a really dominant team. But then as soon as Murphy was there, I think any conversation of trading, Mike MacDonald had probably said to John Schneider, just give me him. That'd
Stick
be
and
perfect.
pick.
Yeah.
I mean, this was something literally about 3 months ago. It's probably about that, maybe even 3.5 months ago. I was on the pod and I was like, hey, I want to kind of declare now that I'm team stick and pick. And the reason, and I had no idea how it was all going to shake. I'm like, look, the reason is there's going to be a quarterback's lemmings off the cliff. Like you'd see it coming. See it coming from a mile away. I thought the best bet out there was over 4.5 quarterbacks in the first round. I'm like, first round, like before the Seahawks pick. And because Penix is talented and someone's going to like Bo Nix and that's Sean Payton. And I'm like, look, in what other draft class are, let's say, in my brain, 5 QBs going, Brock Bowers is going to go, a premium tight end, 3 wide receivers. All right. So already you got 9 dudes. And what does that leave us? So my whole prophecy for the whole time, Josh, was we're getting a top 10 value at 16. So if we just wait and see how it breaks, we're going to get a top 10 value in a year. Other years where dudes would have been like gone 8th, gone 6th, whatever it might be. And that's what I think happened this year. So I'm so happy. I wanted Fatanu. With that, the process of sticking and picking because of the lemmings to me was right process.
It was the right choice.
Yeah.
And that sticking and picking led us to
Oh
one
man.
of your fellow alums, didn't it?
This was like crazy. I had just gotten home. I had my daughter had a play that day. So I had just gotten home, and then Brandon and Adam were texting me like, they took the UConn guy. And I was like, sweet. I was like, I got the right shirt for that one. So I ran up the stairs and got this custom shirt. And everybody had Christian Haynes going 50th, 55th, 60th, a guard who actually plays guard, really good in space, right? And nasty. I mean, I look at what he can do and then look at what Grubb wants to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we got the guy that MacDonald probably really wanted. And we got the guy I bet that Grubb really wanted to, given where he was taken. It's like, man, that dude, he's solid all around. You get him in space, his first step, I mean, his explosion skills show you that. His vertical and his like 10-yard split show you that. But then you watch his film and he's going up against Michigan or others on the UConn team. And his first step to get out, bat down a first guy, get to a second layer, maybe even get to a tertiary layer. I'm sitting there going, holy crap. Are we going to have a good screen game? Are we actually going to be able to screen the ball? And that was something for me that, a boy can dream, right, Josh? Yeah, a boy can dream. So I was very, once that came in, man, I was already loving from the day previous. I'm like, okay, I've come around to Murphy. I think he will be really good. Then we got him and I was like, okay, their process was right. I was wrong. They pulled off the inside straight on this one.
I mean, I had Haynes on one of my original mock drafts and sort of moved away from it. And I wish I hadn't now. I should have kept him high on there to start with. I'm ecstatic about this pick. I think that O-line now looks solid. It looks nasty. If Abe Lucas comes back fully fit, I think that is perfect. You've got Abe Lucas, you have Haynes on the right, and that's just two nasty blockers. If Abe's knee can hold up to any further movements to be seen, but then we signed George Fant as that swing tackle anyway, and we know he can move. I think when you look at the left side, you have Tomlinson, you've got Lamea who can play guard or tackle as well, and he is a big guy. And then Cross as well, and then at centre, Olu. I think that O line looks really good. We have a good mixture of youth, and we have experience there. As long as it gives Gino that pocket, a bit more time in the pocket to actually process and make the right reads, then I am more than happy with that pick. I was very, very happy. I'll be very honest. And then because I'm very conscious, and I've got a quiz that I want us to do at the end.
Yeah, sure.
Well, if we rattle through sort of day 3, what was your overall picture on day 3? How did you feel about it?
So overall, I saw what everybody else said about what I think everybody saw about Tyrese Knight, right? That was like, whoa, I don't know about this one. Kind of drafted high, a bit of a stab when there were other guys there with a better floor. All good and fine. And again, I'm just like, I will give MacDonald. That's the guy he wanted. There were other guys on the board. They traded back. Cedric Gray goes, and he still wanted Knight. So let's see how that all goes. That's what I would say about that one.
Yep.
For me, Barner, Pritchett, Lamea, and then James, for me, were like, I think this was for me like MacDonald's stamp on this draft, being like, give me quality floor guys and let me show you what I could do with them. Because in years previous, this might be where Seattle goes for like the freak athlete. Yep. If Tariq is there and he's got a spark scar off the chains, they got the spider web thing where he's pitching to the 90s and everything he's doing, his RAS scores off the charts. And this wasn't that. This was, for the most part, high quality football players that I think are good floors. And then if I pick one for me, I like the way DJ James moves. I think he's extremely fluid. I look at him and go, oh, that looks like that could be a Trey Brown replacement if Brown has one more year. I'm a big Trey Brown fan. I really like him.
You and me both, sir. You and me both.
He's like my underappreciated dog on that team where I'm like, I don't care. Even if he gets beat, quote unquote beat, it's usually like a half an inch over his outstretched hands. Not like he wasn't there. It's like a quarterback like Stafford made an amazing throw and took a little bit of advantage of his height, but he was there. And I see DJ James like, oh, he looks sticky. He looks fluid like Trey Brown looks. And then real quickly, AJ Barnett to me is like that what does MacDonald want to be? And now instead of a room with 2/3 pass catching tight ends, we have a room with 2/3 run blocking tight ends. Yeah. We still got Noah Fant, who's going to be the lead. Cool. But then you bring in Pharaoh Brown, and you bring in AJ Barner. You're like, okay, these guys could block the what out of people. And good. Good. So that's kind of my quick rundown of that middle of that draft.
Just going to put it out there, AJ Barner was one of Mitch's. So Mitch picks some of these later round players every year, and he hits the nail on the head. AJ Barner, he started talking about 6 to 8 weeks before the draft, and he said that's a Seahawks player. He said it last year with Mike Morris. It seems Michigan seems to be the ones where he knows. But AJ Barner, he said he offers so much in the blocking game. He can catch balls, and if you look at his sort of his average, he averages over like 11 yards per reception anyway. And he was like, that's perfect for us. He said, that is the type of person I'm going to take in day 3 just to pad out the rest of this room. And then we can have a running team again. And he hit that one out of the park. And then DJ James, completely with you as well. I'm still kind of weirded out by the Pritchett James because I think Mitch and I and every other analyst had those flipped on our draft boards for cornerbacks, but we got them both, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
that's Nico Thorpe, I think, had a little word in there for the Auburn corners, didn't he?
Oh, I didn't see that. I missed it. So, I'm sorry.
He was Auburn, wasn't he?
Just injecting, saying, get the Tigers.
It was the
got it.
The Auburn guy.
Makes sense.
And then the big surprise that we had at pick 207 was Michael Gerald, which I think is a pure project piece, and I'm happy with that. He said that he just wanted to see. He stayed with Finley. He was loyal because they said they'd get him in the league. He had better offers, and he said he stayed there because he just wanted to see that name of Finley up on the big board.
The thing for him is like understanding what success might look like for him. And hey, could he pitch? He's got athleticism. And this to me was the, hey, we're going to take a traits guy. Cool. Now, the likelihood of his success in the NFL is probably something like he becomes Stone Forsythe's replacement. So they're not looking at,
exactly
hey,
what we've said.
We have to give Stone like 1.8 million. Like, no, we got Darrell on, he's still in the rookie contract costing us at that point, whatever, 970, whatever it is. Right. And so that to me feels like why you do that. But the chessboard is big in the NFL. So this is why you do this in the 6th. And then the UDFA class was a lot of fun too, man. A lot of fun. You mentioned Halani already, but there were some cool names on there. And if folks didn't see yet, EJ Snyder, a bootleg, was just on the Seahawkers pod with Brandon. And he goes item by item, goes guy by guy in the UDFAs. And it's always a delight to watch EJ kind of do his thing because he knows these dudes, which is really fun.
Sonny Anderson was the one that he really hyped up. That was an episode I listened to as well on my drive to the airport.
Nice, yeah. He liked Sonny. He liked Sonny as a linebacker. He liked what Easton Gibbs can do. Halani, he's like, hey, this guy can flat out play. And then Westover, who of course the Pacific Northwest knows very well from UW. The very intriguing part about Westover, Josh, is like, look, he's not just a tight end. He is very much a halfback. He is a you could put him in lots of different scenarios, and maybe you got a Mike Juszczyk. And heck, wouldn't you want a Juszczyk if you can get that? So it's interesting, and I gotta love that Grubb gets a guy he knows very, very well and goes, I know exactly what I could do with that guy day one.
We said the exact same thing. I think having someone like Westover from that team, I think being so close to the line, being asked to block and as a receiver, I think having him there to help instill sort of Grubb's philosophy, I think it's a masterful move in UDFA. Even if he just goes on the practice squad and whatever during preseason, if he's there to help the guys come to terms with the terminology and how he likes the plays run,
right?
Perfect. I'm very conscious of time, and I'd love to go through. So you are the first contestant for this. We're going to go for, in honor of John Schneider and Mike MacDonald's current movie quote battle off, which we know they don't always get the quotes. Every guest we get on now, I'm going to go through 12 quotes, and I want to see who gets the best.
All right, we'll see.
Are you ready? Well, we are the 12 Talk podcast. We are 12. Of course. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
I'm a big numerology guy, so I get it. So I'm excited to be the first, and I'll try and set a high bar. What can I say?
There you go. I will. I'll give you, let's say, 15 seconds.
Okay. And I'm guessing the movie. That's it. Just the movie, right?
Just the movie, not the year. The movie. That's fine.
Okay, I'll try.
Are you ready, Clinton?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to be caged.
Okay. Strike it out early. Ofer.
Right. Okay. Shawshank Redemption.
Okay. I like it. I don't love that movie. I know people go gaga for it, but I like it. I get it. That's all good.
Fair enough. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt like elderberries.
I'm gonna guess Johnny Dangerously.
No, Monty Python. Holy Grail.
Okay. All right.
There is some Britishness in this.
No, I understand. I probably won't succeed too well there, though. I appreciate it was just a flesh wound. I get it.
That's fine. I say if I put that in, it'd be too easy.
Yeah, right.
I can't go into that backyard. Why not? There's a beast back there. What kind? A giant gorilla dog thing that ate one kid already.
Well, it's got to be the Sandlot.
It is, yes.
There we go. All right.
We're off the mark. The next one is, depending on how much you like British horror comedy, you mean like full moons, silver bullets, and eyebrows that join in the middle?
Well, you gave me a hint there. So is this oh man, I'm gonna go with what is it? A Werewolf in London? Is that
it's a werewolf film, but it's not that.
Okay.
It's Dog Soldiers. One of my personal favorites. I grew up around the British Army, and the humor is spot on. Anyone who's watching or listening who hasn't seen it, by all means, it's brilliant. How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Okay. I'm not going to get this, but I will guess. Let's guess Train Spotting.
Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is kind of outside my genre of movies I typically do like and love, but that's okay.
I'm mixing it up, so you should get some of the next ones.
I'm fine. I'm fine with having a low average. It's fine.
So, were you the first one? So at least I've got a benchmark here as to what I need to do. Coach Boone, you did a good job up here. You ran a tough camp from what I can see. Oh, well, I'm very happy to have the approval of a 5-year-old. I'm 9.5. Thank you very much.
Man, there's so many clues there. Coach Boone. Give me a few more seconds on this one.
Okay.
Can you say the quote again? Coach Boone.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're doing. You're playing for time. Coach Boone, you did a good job up here. You ran a tough camp from what I can see. Well, I'm very happy to have the approval of a 5-year-old. I'm 9.5. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Geez, I would guess something like Bad News Bears, but it's not.
Oh, it's not. Remember the Titans.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
I'm saying it with an English accent. I was very, very conscious of not to say it with an American accent.
No, that's fine. That was actually the first one that popped in my head, but they said the 9.5-year-old. I was like, no, that's going to be a kid's movie. So not okay. No. My bad.
The next one: pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever.
Yeah, I should know this one. I should know this one. I've definitely heard it 1,000 times. This one's gonna be tough to pull. Scars. Sports movie, yeah.
Do you want a hint?
Yeah, definitely. At this point,
Keanu Reeves is in it.
Oh, The Replacements.
Yes.
Yes. Nice. All right. I'll take that.
The next one you've got to get. We go in Sizzler. We go.
Oh yeah. That's White Men Can't Jump.
Yes, the original.
Yes.
Excuse me, baking powder.
That is Austin Powers. Now I'm gonna have to say that. Wait.
I'll give you a redo on that.
Oh.
Same actor.
Oh, right. Good. Sorry, you're right. Wayne's World.
Yes, it's the English accent.
Yes.
See, if I say the English accent.
Right. Thank you for the redo on that one. I definitely saw the face and the name. Like, okay. I also, by the way, I love So I Married an Axe Murderer.
That's
is
a great film.
One of my favorite Mike Myers movies. So
Oi, heed. Love it. I've got the Black Lung Pop.
Oh, yeah, that one I got. That is Zoolander.
Yes.
2
more. It's not a man purse. It's called a satchel. Indiana Jones wears one.
Oh, Hangover.
Yes.
All right.
I'm starting to see your wheelhouse here now.
Yeah.
The next one you should get. That escalated quickly.
Oh yeah, sure. Anchorman.
Perfect. Brilliant. I'll do.
Josh, can you win the quiz game in the first quarter, Josh?
No. It's hard back to Pete Carroll here there. So that's 1. Hang on. I should have just kept the count going. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 12. 50%. We'll take that. If the season is a 50% season, well, can't be at the moment, but as close to that as possible, I will take that. Clinton, thank you so much. I mean, before we go, quick prediction for the season.
This is okay. Very quickly, our opponents are tough. If you go look at we don't know the schedule yet as we record this on May 5th, May 6th. We're going to find out our schedule. We play a very tough schedule. Again, we did last year, by the way, too. All that said, I still expect this team to win 10 games. Let's go. 10-7. Wild card.
There you go.
Yeah.
That is the first of our 12-tour movie quizzes and the first of our predictions. As Clinton, I just want to say thank you so much. Want to tell everyone again where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. So it's the Seahawkers podcast, right? And this the best way, youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast. If you're out on Twitter, X @Seahawkers pod, and come say hi. We'd love to have you there as well. Josh, you and Mitch do an awesome job. Thank you for having us on. And delighted to be part of it, man. Exciting stuff.
Dude, absolute pleasure. It's been brilliant having you on. Obviously, We've been the 12 Talk podcast. If you're new to joining us, thank you so much. You can find us everywhere, basically. If you want to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share, helps us massively. We do have a Discord. It is our pinned post on our X as well. And for me, I just want to say thank you so much, Clinton. It's been an absolute pleasure. With that, I think we should finish with a Go Hawks.
Of course, go Hawks, man.
Nice.